Chapter 1. His wife finally left him. Not for another man, but because she could not watch him shrink anymore. The sentence was written in Sarah's elegant script on a thick card, placed precisely in the center of the kitchen island. Next to it, her wedding ring caught the afternoon light, a perfect, lonely circle of gold. Mark read the note again. Shrink. The word felt alien, clinical. He was an accountant. Things on his spreadsheets shrank: budgets, profit margins, tax liabilities. People did not shrink. He walked through their silent two-bedroom colonial, the air thick with her absence. Her favorite mug was gone from the dish rack. The scent of her lemon verbena soap was already fading from the bathroom. The primary antagonist was not a rival, it was this accusation, this quiet judgment that he had somehow lessened. He did what he always did when faced with a problem: he tried to quantify it. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over her name. What would he even say? Sarah, can you please define the metrics for this alleged shrinking? Instead, he called his own voicemail, a habit from years of checking messages, a small ritual of control. The machine was empty. He felt a rising panic, a formless dread he could not file into a neat column. He had to fix this. He called her. She answered on the fourth ring. Mark, she said, her voice weary. I got your note, he said, his own voice sounding distant. I do not understand. If this is about the vacation we canceled, I already explained the quarterly reports were. Stop, she said softly. Just stop, Mark. It was never about the vacation. It was about the fact that you were relieved we had to cancel it. The line went dead. The click of her hanging up felt more final than a slammed door. His attempt to solve the problem had only validated her reason for leaving. He stood in the sterile silence, faced with a choice. He could retreat into the familiar comfort of his work, burying himself in numbers until the feeling went away. Or he could face the terrifying, undefined void of her accusation. As he stood frozen, his phone buzzed. A text from his boss, David. Emergency board meeting. 9 a.m. tomorrow. The Henderson acquisition is live. We need the boldest play in our playbook. This is the big one. The abstract choice was now a concrete deadline. The world was demanding he go big, just as his wife had condemned him for going small. Chapter 2. He chose the path he knew. At the 9 a.m. meeting, Mark presented a strategy that was a fortress of caution. It was financially sound, legally airtight, and creatively dead. He built walls against every conceivable risk, and in doing so, bricked up any possibility of spectacular success. When he finished, the CEO looked at him with a flat, unreadable expression. Then he turned to a young analyst named Chloe. Anything to add? Chloe, barely 30, stood up and outlined a plan that was aggressive, leveraged, and brilliant. It made Mark's proposal look like a child's drawing next to a blueprint. Mark did not just sit there, he felt an ugly, defensive instinct rise. That's fiscally reckless, he interjected. The exposure on that third quarter projection is unacceptable. He was actively fighting against growth, using the language of safety as a weapon. The CEO held up a hand. Thank you, Mark. Your prudence is noted. It was a dismissal. Mark was sidelined. The spiral accelerated. He started leaving the office precisely at 5, no longer driven by ambition but by a need for the hollow comfort of his empty house. Friends would text, "Beer tonight," and he'd reply, "Swamped." Rain check. The rain checks piled up until the text stopped coming. He was a ghost in his own life. The ultimate failure was not emotional, it was mathematical, the only language he truly respected. A certified letter arrived from the bank. Due to a series of market downturns and his own company's stock dip following the now successful, and risky, Henderson acquisition, his adjustable-rate mortgage was being re-evaluated. His salary, the bedrock of his safe little world, was no longer enough. The fortress he had built was starving him to death. Chapter 3. In a desperate search for old tax documents to plead his case with the bank, Mark went into the one place he had not touched in 15 years, the attic. Under a canvas sheet lay a heavy cedar chest, a wedding gift from Sarah's grandfather. He lifted the lid. The sharp, clean scent of cedar filled the air. Inside was not old paperwork. It was a life he did not recognize. There lay the half-finished hull of a wooden ship, a breathtakingly intricate model of the frigate USS Constitution. Below it were journals filled with sketches, diagrams, and a meticulously detailed business plan for a company called the Compass Rose, dedicated to creating museum-quality historical ship models. He flipped through the pages, his own confident handwriting mocking him from the past. He saw profit and loss projections that were daring, marketing plans that were ambitious. This was the man Sarah had married. The truth hit him like a physical blow. She did not leave the man he was, she left because he had murdered the man he was supposed to be. A manic energy seized him. He would finish it. He would finish the ship and send it to her. It would explain everything without a single word. He carefully carried the model downstairs to his cleared-out workbench. This was his path to redemption. He picked up a tiny, specialized chisel to continue the work on the stern carvings. But his hands, softened by 2 decades of tapping keyboards, felt alien and clumsy. The tool felt wrong. He tried to apply the delicate pressure he remembered, but his grip was unsure. With a sickening little crack, a sliver of carved oak, no bigger than a fingernail, broke off and fell to the floor. He stared at the new, ugly white scar on the dark wood. He had not only abandoned his dream, he had lost the very skill required to resurrect it. He was a stranger in his own past, too weak to even hold the tools of his former self. That was the bottom. Not failure, but utter, irreversible incompetence. Chapter 4. He slumped onto the workshop stool, the broken model a monument to his own decay. For an hour, he just stared. But as his eyes traced the lines of the ship, they settled on something he had not broken. A small section of the planking near the bow. He saw the joints, nearly invisible, where dozens of tiny wooden pieces met in a perfect, seamless curve. He remembered the feeling, not of ambition, not of business plans, but of quiet, focused joy as he had shaped each one. The epiphany was quiet, not a thunderclap. The point was never the finished ship. The point was the process. The shrinking had not been his failure to launch a company. The shrinking was every single day he had chosen the comfort of a spreadsheet over the challenge of shaping a piece of wood. With a strange sense of calm, he picked up the broken piece from the floor. He did not try to glue it back on the Constitution. That ship belonged to a different man. Instead, he took a fresh block of basswood from a drawer, found a simple schematic online for a small fishing dory, and made the first cut. He worked through the night, the small, rhythmic scrape of sandpaper filling the silence of the house. A month later, his tiny Etsy shop, named The Doryman, sold its first model for $60. A year later, he was barely breaking even, but his hands were calloused and steady. He never called Sarah. He did not need to prove anything anymore. One Saturday, while sanding the smooth, curved hull of a new boat, he looked at his own hands, covered in fine, pale dust. They were no longer the soft, hesitant hands of an accountant. They were the hands of a maker. They were growing.